Welcome to Creative Conversations. This is a conversation with Gemma Wilson from VALA Energy in South Wales. Gemma is owner, founder and director of VALA, which is a nutrition and wellness company. Recently started, quite bravely, in the field of sports nutrition. First of all, it's only the first step, I should add. VALA's produced an energy gel which is very innovative, not like anything else on the market. It's got matcha, chia seeds, maple syrup and all sorts of good stuff, and none of the manufactured nasties that you sometimes find in other energy products. And Gemma's going to talk to us all about that in this conversation, and also about the trajectory that she has in mind for VALA, the vision that she has, which is about being much more than just an energy gel or sports nutrition manufacturer. Gemma herself is super cool. She's got a fascinating story. She's inspirational and she's a lovely person. I'm sure you'll enjoy the conversation as much as I did. This is Gemma. Okay, so thank you for joining us, Gemma. Welcome to the call.
Thank you.
Sorry about the technical issues. We have had a few technical issues getting this started, haven't we? But we are there now, hopefully. So I really appreciate you taking the time to speak to me and talk to us about VALA. So I first came across VALA gels when we were camping, and being a mountain biker and bike racer myself, I'm always interested in nutrition, and also from a sort of systemic creative point of view, it ticks two systems boxes really, because it is very relevant to the human metabolic system and the ecological system that we all live in, the environment that we all live in. So I'd be really interested. You've got some really interesting takes on that, and the ingredients and the product and the ethos is all, I think really interesting to discuss. So I'd like to get into all of that and talk about it. I thought, first of all, though, just from speaking last week, it'd be really interesting if you just gave us the backstory, really, because you've had a very interesting trajectory to become the founder of an energy gel company. So I thought that'd be really interesting. Just talk us through where you started and how you got there, and what made you do it.
Yeah, so now I'm 31, and from the age of 8, I'd wanted to work in fashion and be a fashion designer. So my, early life, I guess, was focused towards that direction. So finally I went to university, started studying it, realized I actually didn't enjoy it, and then fell into fashion promotion, which is, I would describe it as everything you need to make a magazine. So photography, styling, branding, graphics, writing, copy. And I really loved that. And I realized that I loved the whole art direction side of building a brand and ensuring everything, like all touch points across the brand, everything's cohesive and really represents that brand to the best of its ability. So when I graduated in 2011, I started doing graphic design freelance, and then worked as a fashion assistant for a while, doing, all of the above really. Got made redundant, then went freelance full-time, became a junior, senior designer, then moved into art direction, mostly for fashion and beauty brands in London and then also in Australia. And so that was kind of my early career, I suppose, and what I thought I wanted to do. And I sort of fell out of love, I suppose, with living in London for a while, and then I thought that was the problem, why I was sort of feeling a bit of discontent. And so I thought I needed to change scenery, so I just packed up and moved to Australia.
As you do.
Yeah, I know. I didn't know, so didn't tell anyone until I booked the flight. And,
really? You didn't tell anyone?
No.
Wow, that's quite a move.
Yeah, my family were surprised. Is that a good word to use?
I can imagine, yeah.
Yeah, so I sort of thought, maybe I need a change of pace, and if I'm going to do this, I need to do it now. And moved to Australia, carried on working for global agencies and beauty brands and fashion brands. And then while I was out there, a week after I got there, I met a guy at a barbecue who was in the process of going sober. And
so Australian. Met someone at a barbecue's in the process of going sober. It's a great Australian story.
Yeah, definitely barbecue. It was Australia Day as well.
Oh, wow.
Really adds to the story.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we started hanging out because he lived 2 streets away, and then we started running together, and then he was just a very naturally good runner, and he started to eat more of a plant-based diet as well, and gain more of an interest in nutrition. And then as his love of running grew, he, I guess, started to take it more seriously, and that fell into his nutrition as well. And he started eating energy gels, and I remember he did Sydney Marathon, and he bought some energy gels at the expo the day before, which is just the biggest rookie error that every person that does Ironman or marathon running says, like, you never try anything new on race day.
No.
And that's what he did, and so he was just like, this is terrible. And I was like, what is in these gels? And I started looking, and I love reading the back of packages anyway. And since I went vegan about 7 years ago, that was a big part of my journey towards veganism, was so that I would eat less, I guess, really overly processed foods, because they weren't that available 7 years ago. There weren't so many vegan alternatives. So going plant-based and having this more natural approach to nutrition stayed with me. And then that day when I was looking at the gels, I remember thinking, there's got to be something else. And there just was nothing in Australia or the UK. There were few in America, but I just sort of had this seed in my head, and that was September 2017. And then I stayed in Australia for another, until the following July. And then I was just kind of like, I've got to do this, when something just eats away.
It's nibbling at you. Yeah.
And you just, like, you can't stop thinking about it. And then I'd be, like, on the tube to work, being like, well, what would I design it like? And then what would I put in it? And it just sort of started taking over evenings and weekends. And as I was saying to you before, I really love Brendan Brazier, and Thrive, the book, I think is incredible, and it was so ahead of its time, and it's still so underrated. And I remember reading that he had alternatives to energy gels, and thinking, well, I don't have those ingredients to hand, and I don't like those particular things, so how would I swap things out and mix that with recipes I'd seen on Pinterest, and then reviews that I'd seen of other natural energy gels, and sort of started formulating something, and then testing that with people, and testing the demand. And I was still freelancing in London alongside all of this, and just building a brand.
So you moved. You were still in Australia at this point, or you'd moved back to London?
I'd moved back to London by July 2018.
Okay.
So I stayed in Australia for about roughly 18 months. Came back with Dan, my partner, and then I was still trying to save up for VALA, sort out, funding, business loans, and I didn't want to jack in the full-time job just yet.
Sure, yeah.
And so I was still sort of testing everything, getting trademarks in place, and eventually I just got to the point where I couldn't do everything, because I was working full-time freelance essentially, so you do 9:30 to 6 every day on a contract, and then getting up before work to go to the gym, and then doing some other freelance work for musicians in Australia, and then doing VALA. And I was just like, I can't do all this. Like, this is against everything I believe in. I don't agree with hustle culture and working every hour of the day. Like, I like my free time.
And it's important.
Yeah, totally. I think, like, mental health, like, is something that is just, again, like, quite under promoted. It's, it's one thing to promote, like, giving all your hours to your business, but you can't be fully present if your brain hasn't had a chance to rest that day, or if you haven't interacted with nature and not looked at a screen for an hour, or not taken a proper lunch break. And so, I just decided to move back to Wales in August of 2019, and I've just been doing VALA ever since, alongside some freelance projects here and there, but that is my main sort of job now, because it took from August until June, well, end of May this year, to even just get all of the paperwork done, to get the manufacturers, because I do everything myself. I don't have a team.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I don't have one employee. So all of the, like even things I just never knew about, like, shelf life testing and how you transport things from one factory to another, or, all these things you have to learn.
Regulations and certifications, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's just such a highly regulated industry. Obviously, that's good. But I just, every week there was some new paperwork I had to fill out. So that became a full-time job. And now obviously you think, oh, I climbed that mountain of getting it made, and now the new mountain is actually selling it and getting it promoted and marketed. So that's kind of the new journey I'm on at the moment now. But
I guess your background at least lends itself to that mountain in a way, doesn't it? All of the fashion work and the marketing and branding has sort of set you up for that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, having that, I'm so grateful, because that's allowed me to be very self-sufficient and to save a lot of money in the startup area. Like, the overheads I have are literally just manufacturing costs. And, obviously business loan repayments and things, but everything else, it comes from my background, being able to build the website or design a leaflet at the last minute or get some stickers printed. So that, I feel like, very grateful for that. And I always say, I think everything happens for a reason. And, a lot of people think I'm too old to start a business now. And I think...
Really?
Yeah, like, I definitely have friends say, if they're in their like late 30s, oh, I wish I could have done this, but I'm kind of in this career now. And I think that starting a business when you've had a previous career is actually quite advantageous, because you know what your skills are. Like, if your background's in PR, you're obviously very good at speaking to people, and you'll have a lot of connections. And so, you can always take what you've learned and apply that to your job. Yeah, transferable skills. Having my background's obviously been hugely advantageous, and I think that's what's helped to set VALA apart as well. It's that it's not like a sports-looking product. It's slightly more contemporary and minimal, maybe more millennial branding.
It's one of the things that struck me, actually. I was talking to, and the way that we got in contact really was through Mark at Willow Springs campsite in Glencorrig, and it really struck me that he said this was a startup company, a new company, and I was immediately really impressed with the branding, because I thought, wow, it's unusual for a startup to actually have that level of branding and thought having gone into it, really. So you can see that, that comes through. Just to rewind a little bit before we get into the product and stuff, I'm just interested in the journey. You became plant-based, and was that before you moved to Australia, or was that sort of tied into that move?
So I became plant-based in December 2013, and then I moved to Australia just over 3 years after. Not really related, but Australia is a great place to be a vegan, because they just have so many restaurants. Yeah, I think
that's interesting.
I think it's one of the top places in the world at one point, voted to be a vegan.
Wow. You sort of think of like South LA and those sort of areas of being kind of pro-vegan, don't you? California and stuff. I wouldn't have thought of Australia at all, really.
No, it's great. So many really good vegan places, especially in Melbourne, where I lived. No, they weren't tied in.
And so obviously you were already on a journey. You've become plant-based, so you're thinking about natural food and getting proper nutrition, and your health has been important, and also tied into that is an ecological sensitivity, which comes with being plant-based. Vegan diet, because it's arguably the most harmonious way to live in the world, isn't it? Ecologically. So I'm interested to what degree that you're already having those thoughts and you're already on that journey, and then you're introduced to the running world once you met Dan and his progress through that. So in a way, the journey for Valor started in that move to plant-based. And was that mostly about your own health, about the environment, or about a mixture of different things, welfare and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I think primarily I would call myself an ethical vegan because since the age of 6 I haven't eaten meat because once I found out what it was, I just couldn't sort of reconcile in my brain how I had the right to kill something else to eat. And I loved animals, I still love animals, and I just never thought that it was very fair, but I was brought up in a family of meat eaters, and so I was just very much brought up with the opinion that we respect you, you respect us, and we won't try and tell each other what to do.
Okay, quite healthy.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty fair way to be brought up as well, you know. My mum always went the extra mile to make vegetarian alternatives and educate me about, you know, vegetarian cheese and stuff. And then, yeah, I started, I think, just learning more. I think it started to come into general consciousness a bit more. I always call it, to my friends, pre-Beyonce. Do you know, before Beyonce went vegan? And then all of a sudden there was this huge thing that everyone seemed to be talking about because she started, she invested in some vegan meal company. And then there just seemed to be lots of hype around plant-based diets in the media. I don't know why. But yeah, so veganism, I think I was just educating myself more. And then I had actually stopped drinking a few months before that, given up alcohol, started running more. And I sort of realized this shift in my lifestyle of, okay, if I stop drinking and I start eating a bit better and look, you know, what I put into my body, I noticed that my migraines go away and, you know, I feel better. And I am naturally very interested in healing through food, Ayurveda, you know, the concept that everything in our body is connected. Our gut, as we said before, is like our second brain, and I think once you start learning about that, it just becomes so fascinating. And so that sort of tied into the beginning of the, I don't know what you call it really, the journey that I had towards taking a more unrefined approach to nutrition. And I did sort of find myself falling down a slippery slope of getting somewhat obsessive with it at times, which I think, you know, people talk about orthorexia and an unhealthy obsession with healthy eating. And that was something I definitely found myself oh, am I getting into that territory? Because it becomes quite addictive to only eat things that you know exactly what's in them.
It's easy to get obsessed about, isn't it? Because there's ingredients lists everywhere. You know, you can easily access the information that you need to become obsessed, really, in a way.
Yes, exactly. And so I think that was definitely another learning curve. And I did find out last year, I got diagnosed with OCD. So that all sort of ties in to itself, and learning about that. And then it ties into the mental health aspect of it. And so, yeah, I think they all, now when I look back, I can see how they join up together. But at the time, they felt like quite separate things, even though there were micro connections between, if I stop drinking, then I have more energy to go out running the next day and on the weekend. So yeah, that's the main, I suppose that's the main part of the journey.
And it seems like all those things have sort of coalesced into VALA. You know, all of those bits that have been kind of, you know, over 7 or 8 years have come together, and you focus those into, you know, because I mean, you do need to be a bit obsessive to start a business. I think, you know, you have to have that, you've got to have that thing where if it's nibbling away at you, you give it attention and you allow it to grow, you allow the seed to grow. And the sheer level of determination it takes to start a company, particularly in the energy gel sports nutrition sector, which is already, you know, well populated and a busy sector to operate in. I think you've got to have that a level of obsession and dedication to it to actually make it work. You know, I think it's fairly common really in people who want to sort of go in that direction.
And I think as well a level of naivety. I was quite lucky that I didn't work in that space, and so maybe if my background was in sports nutrition, I'd say, you know, you can't do that. And I had people tell me, you can't do that. You can't physically put these ingredients in a sachet. You can't blend them. I used to get emails of factories being like, oh, this is a nice kitchen top idea, but unfortunately, like so many people, it'll never be a reality.
Really?
And
So they were
yeah,
very negative about it. Okay.
yeah, just a bit like, oh, well, nice try, but, better luck next time. But I'm that kind of person, I think, like you said, sometimes having an obsessive brain really works to your advantage because you're like, I'm
Definitely.
going to make this happen. So yeah, I was really fortunate to find an amazing factory that works with a lot of the big names that were just really intrigued by what this was, that wanted to give me the time of day, that wanted to, help negotiate on the order quantities in order to get it off the ground. And so I'm so grateful for them that, they saw that space in the market too.
Absolutely. Yeah. So eventually you persevered, and you found a company that was willing to support you and work with you. But you could have easily given up, couldn't you, at any point on that journey, really, until you got there
Yeah,
and got that agreement.
definitely. And I think that's, like you say, that's part of the standard business. You've just got to be prepared to keep pivoting because initially I wanted to package them myself and then couldn't find the sachets, and then I wanted to import from America, and then environmental health were like, no, like it's got to be a British approved laminate because we have different rules in the EU, and they were just
Wow.
all hurdles. And then I managed to find the factory, and then they were like, no, we can't use lemon zest, you have to find another way. Then they said, you need to buy your own machinery, and so I just had to keep sending people things, finding someone that would supply me with the machinery, finding someone to rig it up. And it just seemed never ending for a while. And I just, it was hard to see the end of the tunnel, I think. And I think everyone goes through that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you've picked a particularly difficult, line to pursue, and I think it's all the more impressive that you've managed to, come out of that. So some businesses are easier, I would say, to get started than having to build your own production line and buy machinery and figure out, all these different regulations. So let's talk about the ingredients then. It's another thing that really attracted me straight away to VALA. I'm similar, sort of journey really. I've been plant-based now for I think 20 years.
Wow.
When it was really difficult 20 years ago to be
Yeah.
vegan, but much easier now. So if Beyonce is responsible for that, I owe her a thank you, I think, because life is definitely easier now. But I was really attracted to the ingredients because similarly I've been through lots of different in terms of nutrition and also in sports. I race mountain bike endurance races, 8-12 hour races, and you've got to have nutrition is a massive part of that, in the endurance
Yeah.
sort of, you've got to have something that's going to keep you going and not make you sick and all the rest of it. So when I saw the ingredients, I thought that's really interesting, and you've got some very interesting stuff in there which you don't find in other. I mean, I've never seen matcha in an energy gel or chia in an actual gel before. So talk us through those. Talk us through the ingredients and what they do and why they're in there.
Yeah, so each of the ingredients are in there for a purpose, obviously. And I think the main reason, obviously, of an energy gel is to give you energy. And so I was trying to find a natural source of sugars and carbs. And obviously, lots of people that make their own energy gels will use dates or put dates with peanut butter sometimes, or honey. And obviously, honey is vegan. So yeah, I started with the dates, and then that when I was making them at home, they were medjool. But then when I started going into manufacturing, I found that I needed more of a minced date paste because otherwise it was too gloopy and gritty. And then people that were trying it were just like, it tastes like baby food. I don't think I could eat it. So yeah, we've got the dates. I'm just going to get my list.
I've got one here as well, actually. Snap.
Oh, there you go. So yeah, like the main purpose of them is that they can be easily metabolized, and they get released quickly into the bloodstream. And then maple syrup, very similar. It's also adds a bit more of like a liquid aspect to stop the gels being so thick, and obviously really high in natural sugars. And the one we use is like 100% pure Canadian maple. It's a really high grade.
It's worth mentioning now, I think, that if often maple syrup, the kind of maple syrup you buy in the shops, often it's like 90% some kind of fructose paste with 10% maple, but you've actually got proper actual maple syrup in there, haven't you? So
yeah, 100%. Yeah, because I didn't realize that, similar to you. And then again, I was reading the back of the bottles in the supermarket, and I think it's carob. Is that it? Carob syrup?
Carob or high fructose corn or something. Yeah.
Yeah, just stuff you don't want to be eating, basically. So yeah, those were the two main things. And then lemon juice and lime juice, because obviously vitamin C, and they also help to sort of neutralize the overly sweet quality. They're not super overwhelming. I think they're more of an aftertaste, really. And the thing with VALA was that I wanted a gel that would really help to, I suppose, nourish people and, you know, keep their immune system topped up, rather than putting some chemicals in that might compromise that, or refined sugar that might, you know, obviously not be the best for your body when you're taking that multiple times a week. And so that's why everything in you is 100% natural. And then obviously chia, I'm sure you've read Born to Run, the book, all about
yes.
like the properties of the runners taking the chia, and Dan put me onto that book, and I was so fascinated by it.
It's a great book.
And yeah, it's such a good read. So yeah, we use again powdered chia, because the chia seeds were starting to get too gloopy and frog spawn like
Right.
when you eat them, and they obviously absorb a lot of liquid as well. So I felt like having the powdered was like a better solution to that.
Frog spawn's not a pleasant sensation, is it? In your throat?
Exactly.
No.
And it gets quite sticky in your throat as well if you eat the pudding or something, or you have chia once it's been soaking for a while. And I definitely wanted to avoid that. Matcha tea, obviously for its antioxidant properties, but also because it has this, and again, like a bitter quality to it that sort of offsets the sweetness again. And then lastly is salt, which obviously is Hal and Mon. We use the Welsh sea salt, because when I started with the samples, I was starting to do Himalayan pink salt. That was like the main thing I liked, because I quite like the flavor. And then again, Dan was saying, I read this article all about how it's a finite source, how they actually mine it, it's not sustainable. And that I never knew that. I just didn't know that it was finite.
And it's shipped all the way across the world, well, halfway across the world, isn't it, as well? So.
Yeah, exactly. And so I remembered that there's Hal and Mon. We have amazing Welsh sea salt in North Wales, and really, again, as VALA, it's like very proudly Welsh. I really wanted to use them. So, I mean, a lot of the ingredients we use, I didn't want to compromise on the quality. I didn't want to cut corners, which is obviously reflected in the price of the gel. It is a more premium gel, but then I do think you get what you pay for in terms of the quality of the products, and you know, you're not getting any additives or preservatives, and because of the natural sugars and the lemon and the lime juice, the citric acid, they are what keep the gels preserved, essentially.
Yeah, I think you're right, really. That, I mean, the price point is a little bit higher than some of the more mainstream ones, but I think most anyone who's health conscious in any way really would, as soon as you look at the ingredients, you've got things like matcha, you know, matcha is a very expensive ingredient, isn't it? You've got proper maple syrup, there's chia in there, so you can see that you're getting something which is definitely a premium product in terms of value for money. You know, it's equal or better, I would say, probably, because you're putting something really positive into your body.
Yeah, and in terms of convenience as well, I think that's what I found frustrating with Dan, that we couldn't just think to ourselves, oh, he's got a marathon next week, we'll go and pick him up some gels, or we'll order some online and they'll come in a week. It's, you know, finding the time in your evening or your weekend and remembering to order the ingredients, mixing them up in the NutriBullet, spooning them in to the little sachet and then heat sealing them. And I think, yeah, like, you pay for that convenience as well, essentially.
Sure. So that was how the ingredients started, was it? You were fueling Dan on his marathons by getting it all, blending it up, putting it into a gel flask.
Yeah. So it's basically, it's like like a mini Mylar pouch is what I used to use.
Okay.
And then he'd seal them up in individual packs, because that was something that he found very frustrating when he was running, was that a lot of the natural gel packets, they were quite big or bulky, and he couldn't fit them in a pouch or in a pocket. So that was a driving force for the size of VALA as well.
Okay.
They should be smaller, more pocket friendly, and that with a thicker viscosity, like they wouldn't go all over your hands when you're eating half of one during a kilometer. So, yeah.
And I know that we talked when we spoke last week. You talked about avoiding maltodextrin and those kind of refined sugars, which are kind of heavily processed. And I know from racing and using those sort of maltodextrin products, and I even experimented making some myself. Using that stuff, they didn't taste anywhere near what VALA tastes like, I can assure you. But I would always get, in a 12-hour race, I'd always get to, it was pretty much spot on, always 8 hours, 7.5 hours, 8 hours. I'd get to the point where I couldn't have any more energy products at all, and I had to stop, eat some food, and then carry on. And doing that slowed me down for the next hour, and also it risks a bit of indigestion because you're eating bulk, which you don't really want when you're kind of in an endurance race. And it was I'm interested in your view about maltodextrin and the information that you've got about that and how it affects the gut, because it sounded like that's actually some of the issues that I was experiencing, and which I know other athletes do experience with using that kind of product. So talk to me a little bit about maltodextrin and those sort of processed sugars.
Yeah, so basically I found from obviously my personal experience with Dan that they didn't agree with him, and then when I started speaking to other triathletes and runners, I was finding that there seemed to be two culprits. It's either maltodextrin or caffeine, and those two things were really causing the gastric upset and basically impacting their racing. And I remember being told by one triathlete that the maltodextrin in the gels was causing gout and inflammation. And I just remember reading up about it, because I was using products with it in at the time, like vegetable stock. It's in a lot of things you don't even realize, and even supplements and things. And I just kind of started thinking, like, what is this, and what is its purpose, and why is it in there? And then I started to think, well, surely I could make something that doesn't need to have it in there, but have a similar sort of result. And I think that my frustration with maltodextrin seemingly being in everything, and most things sports related, was what kind of inspired, VALA's formula, essentially.
And everything on the list really for VALA is food, isn't it? You would have it.
Yeah.
When you weren't eating a gel, you would happily eat dates or maple syrup or have matcha tea or chia. It's all stuff that you would put in your body anyway, whether you were racing or not racing, or out on a run or a ride or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's stuff which is sort of proven for the human digestive system. We've evolved, we've grown, eating those sort of things in any case, haven't we? Whereas maltodextrin, and I don't know, what you know about the actual manufacturing process, but it's manufactured, isn't it? It doesn't occur naturally.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's the connection to gout? Because I hadn't heard that before, and that's quite concerning, isn't it?
Yeah, I actually don't know. I was just told, basically someone approached me and they said, I'm really happy to try a natural gel because of the inflammation it's caused. So yeah, I'd never even realized that. I've obviously heard of people saying it can be inflammatory. There are side effects to a lot of these additives and preservatives and bulking agents that we use so commonly in our food. But yeah, I'd never heard of that before. Find out more, definitely.
Sure. So the take us through the process of you've got the ingredients together, and that was a trial and error, I guess. You've sort of tried more and less of the other, and Dan's been the guinea pig out on his marathons for different recipes and that kind of thing, and you've settled on this. You settled on this set of ingredients. So you alluded to some of the challenges you've experienced in terms of setup and doing that. Just sort of take us through the process of what it takes really to turn this an ingredients list that you know works, tried and tested, to turn that into a gel, you know, a product that someone puts in the pocket.
From the beginning to the end, from like ordering the ingredients.
Yeah, just that. I mean, I guess it's something that all of us who buy sports nutrition are familiar with the packaging, but I guess something that you don't necessarily think about is what it takes to actually, you know, produce that. I know you've mentioned buying your own machinery and that sort of stuff. So, I mean, I guess you could. It's probably days of a story, the full version, but maybe a sort of step by step is what it took to sort of get that into a product, basically.
Yeah. So a quick walkthrough would be before you even go into manufacturing, you obviously have to do sample testing, shelf life testing. So I did accelerated shelf life testing. So I tested for 12 months in the equivalent of 3 months. Is that right? Every month is a week.
Wow. And how does that work? How do they accelerate it?
I have no idea.
Okay.
You send it to a lab, they accelerate. They send you some paperwork.
Okay.
And a date. Yeah, I don't actually know. I think they must put it through a sort of like a growth. You know, they accelerate the growth of bacteria, essentially.
Some kind of bacterial enzyme.
And the microbes in it, yeah. So that was the main thing. So you could do that for as long as you want. I opted for a year. So that's a long process in itself. You obviously have to, I mean, I wanted to get informed sport certified so we could be used by the army, the military. So that's a whole other process in itself. Again, sending off samples for that. And then when it comes actually down to manufacturing, I obviously source the ingredients. I get them sent to my blenders. They blend it up. They send it off to the packaging facility. They package it up. Then it comes to me, basically. That's the very short version of it, essentially.
And if you've needed to, so you mentioned buying your own machinery. Is that so? So have you sort of set up, bought the machinery which is needed to produce your gels in the production plant that makes them?
So basically, we have the manufacturer has all the machinery for producing the gels, so they are all good. But then when it came to the blending, because they weren't used to blending something as thick as a date paste, I had to source my own, I guess like giant blender. So I had to buy a giant arm and with spikes on the end, essentially.
Okay.
And then they blend that up in a drum, and then they package that into something called a palicon with a virgin liner, which is basically 100% sterile, never been used, and then that gets all sealed up and then transported to the manufacturing facility. They plug it in, and then it comes out the other end, and then they package it up.
And so they package it up, and then they sort of from the factory, you're getting a bulk load of gels, and are you warehousing those and shipping them, or you sort of contract that as well?
No, I do all of the distribution myself as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
For now, until it gets crazy.
For now, I mean, that's what I quite like about being like, I guess, you know, like an independent or a smaller business, is that you have the time to write a note and to make it personal in the early days.
Sure.
But then I want to try and keep, as we scale, eventually keep this sort of personal touch with everything. Like we send sticker packs out and personalized notes, and yeah, everything's considered. And so I hope that the standard is still kept high, you know, when you outsource it to someone else, or if you start getting other people to do it for you, because I'm quite a perfectionist.
Comes with an obsessive mindset, doesn't it?
Oh, it definitely
Yeah.
does. Yeah, for sure.
I think that ties in as well with the journey you've gone on, because it's been quite a personal thing, hasn't it? I know that we talked a bit last week, and you mentioned earlier about you were in a very, very high pressure industry in the fashion industry, and then you were trying to combine that, which is already in itself very high pressured, with other freelance work and with starting VALA. But now you've moved into a space where actually you're able to look after your own mental health and physical health better, and that's built in really to the ethos of the company, isn't it?
Yeah, basically, what I was saying to you, I guess before this chat, was that my aim is for VALA to eventually become a wellness or a lifestyle brand, and a company that can really help to promote mental health, gut health, and physical health. Because I think that for what your health isn't just specific to being fit, quote unquote.
Absolutely.
It's all about the relation between how what you eat affects how you feel, and then how you feel affects if you're going to exercise that day, or if you're not in the mood for it, and then you get stuck in this vicious cycle. And it is, when you first transition to, I think, a more active, or take a more, I guess, maybe plant-based, or you take more consideration as to what you eat. It is a bit of a struggle at first, in that readjustment period of realizing I have to do this full time. But then I think the more you do it, you feel the effects, you see the effects even in your skin, how you sleep better. And yeah, I really believe that everything is just so interconnected, that just to speak about sports nutrition seems, what's the word? It just seems a little bit maybe naive not to think that everything interacts with each other. So yeah, eventually, I think, as I've said before, I would really like to be able to offer free exercise classes in the Avon Valley, and to start offering, I'll call it rest days. I think that's what the series would be called, where we would, do things that are beneficial for mental health, like sound healing and yoga and meditation classes, and then be able to use the percentage of VALA's profits to reinvest that into the community and to improve mental health in that way. So.
Which is just fantastic and music to my ears, really, and I think that's also what you're, when you're buying VALA gels, you're kind of investing in this ethos, which I think, is I think you're going to be beneficial to the community you're in, to the world you're in, because they're produced in a sensitive way to the people who are buying the gels. And it's something that we talk about a lot. All of those things, really, the essence of systemic creative and where that came from was the interconnectedness of everything, and the importance of seeing the big picture as well as focusing on the details, the importance of mental and physical health in the workplace. And it's really, really positive to see businesses that really take account of that and think about that. And not only from just a personal, wellness perspective, really, but there's study after study after study demonstrates that actually if people are healthier, whether it's physical or mental, both, I don't even see those as two separate things, actually. I think they're so interwoven that healthy, it's one thing, really, are way more productive, way more creative, and people are having fun and are happy, are just a lot more creative by a huge margin, like 50% more productive and 50% more creative. So it's inspiring to me to see businesses which are putting those ethics into practice, particularly as a small startup business, because you've got so many challenges when you're starting a business already. Simply, especially when you're going into the sector that you're going into, which is as we said, very populated, very busy. There's 100 million options people can choose from. You've got a lot of challenges to overcome, just to keep your head above water, just to survive. But actually having those ethics from the beginning, looking after your own health, looking after the health of people who are buying the product and thinking in that way, that systemic way, is actually likely to ensure sustainability and longevity better than thinking, oh, I'm going to do that down the road. I'll get established and then I'll think about, health and my own health and wellness. If you build that in from the beginning, as you're doing, you're setting that standard, and then as you grow, you start employing people, you're setting the standard from the beginning, which is how you want to grow. And actually, although it may feel a bit more stressful because there's more factors coming in at the beginning, it will be much easier as you go along because people are healthier, they'll be more productive, they'll be more creative, and you've set out what you need from the business for yourself and for other people, which is beneficial in many ways from the beginning.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's about setting the intention early on, and people often talk about business goals and being maybe in a financial term, but I think as well it's about thinking, like you said, about what environment do you want to create within your business, and when you get staff, what do you want your business, your culture to be, your working culture. And I think all of these things are so integral to what VALA is, and they've come from my learnings of working in these fast-paced environments where I felt like, oh, I don't feel like I should take a lunch break, or, I feel like I'm having to force myself to exercise at the end of the day because I feel so low on energy because I've been working such a long day with the commute. And so I think, I just think there's definitely as well during COVID, there's a shift in working patterns and mentalities towards work, and people now that they don't have to do the hour or half an hour commute, they have that time to spend with their family, or to go for a run in the morning, or to read their book, or to journal. And I think that can only be a positive thing. So I hope that if we ever do go back to working in offices full time, that people are still able to do that, or have the more flexible working hours that they've sort of become accustomed to now.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the increase in flexibility, more employers and more businesses realise that actually, because as you say, during COVID it had to be flexible. There's no alternative, and actually are starting to reap the benefits. Hopefully, reaping the benefits of that added flexibility that people experience, and the increase in people's productivity and creativity. If you do that 10-12 hour day every day, 4 hours of that are just not productive anyway. Actually, you're really not contributing your maximum. Whereas, I often find, I have a sense now, and it's very easy to fall into bad habits, isn't it? And I have to bring myself out of it. I'm just going to get this done, and I'm going to work on it. And then 7 hours go past, and you're still staring at the screen. And when I catch myself doing that, I'm like, put it down, go for a walk, go for a run, go for a ride. And invariably, every single time, I come back and immediately I solve the problem I've been trying to solve in the last 3 hours in like 10 minutes. Because my heart rate's gone up, my metabolism's been stimulated, I've been outside, I've got some natural light, and I just feel better. And building that into the workplace is just massively important. Really important for businesses to do that. I think there's a resistance to it because it seems, well, we can't just let people disappear away from the desk for an indeterminate period of time. We don't know what they're doing. We don't know if they're working. We can't monitor it. But actually, if you just allow that with the right people in the right job, then actually you find the rewards are huge. And I've always worked in operations management roles in various organisations, and I've always managed my teams like that, always given people the maximum flexibility possible. I'm just interested in the job being done. I'm not really worried about how people do it. Do the job, as long as it's done, brilliant. Work at 10 o'clock at night if that's what works for you. It's absolutely fine. And always the results are, really positive.
Yeah, it comes down to trust, I think, as well, and treating people like humans, and realising that everyone's number one priority in life isn't work. They're working so they can do the things that they enjoy, or have the experiences with their family, or with their partner. And I really loved in the book Let My People Go Surfing. I don't know if you've read it.
Oh, I haven't read that, no.
Oh, he's the founder of Patagonia.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, he says that when the surf's really good, they take half a day off and they go surfing in the office, because unless it's really pressing work, they can come back and do it, you know, later on, but they've got to make the most of the weather and the environment they have while they have it. And that just seems like such a progressive way of working, and they've been doing that for so long, and even the changes they managed to get implemented into childcare within the workplace, really inspiring. So I'd recommend that.
I'll have a look at that. I mean, I know something about the story of Patagonia, yeah, so that makes sense. I haven't read the book, but certainly a very inspirational company. And again, you know, no one can deny the success that Patagonia have had, but they always do that with ethics at the heart of what they do, don't they? You know, and support the economies that they work in.
Yeah, definitely. So inspiring to see what they've done.
Absolutely, yeah. So, I know we spoke last week. I know we could talk about these things forever. So just coming back to VALA, we spoke a little bit about packaging, and that it's something that you've thought about a lot and are working on and thinking about. And I know that it's questions that people will have. So one of the issues people see with gels is the, you know, environmental issues, that they're either difficult to recycle, or some people find them impossible to recycle depending where they live. And I know that you've thought a lot about that, and you're thinking about ways to sort of overcome that and do things as you know, as a positive way as possible with VALA. So talk us through that, what your thoughts are on that and how you're moving forward.
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, when I started VALA, I wanted to be the first gel company with biodegradable packaging, which again probably comes down to my naivety and having no experience with laminate or mass manufacture. So I tried lots of different things. I tried importing these cellulose cellophane packets from, I think it's like Norway or Finland or somewhere, but they were just so thin and flimsy, and also they were see-through, and if you have see-through packaging, your food is obviously going to be exposed to sunlight, it's going to grow bacteria quicker, and I had to can that idea pretty quickly. So I kept looking and just kept hitting, I suppose, dead ends, and I felt like no one there was offering an alternative to the mass-produced laminate. But then when I started to look more into it and the production process, I could see why, because if you want something produced in a factory setting that's going to be flushed with nitrogen, oxygen-free nitrogen, then it needs to be able to sustain all of these manufacturing processes and then still be able to look like a product you'd want to eat at the end and be presentable. And so I remember thinking maybe I should just start off and be like an entirely sustainable, reusable business instead, and start with that model. But then I had a conversation with my mentor, and you know, she was saying, I think as a new business, you've already got so many challenges to begin with that you kind of need something that is a smaller size, that is easier for someone to pick up, or if you just send to someone, you can't be sending someone a massive jar of sample along with a flask. And she was just like, I think that's something that maybe further down the line you can look at doing, like some of the bigger names have started doing already. And so that's definitely a priority. And I remember Dan again recommended Shoe Dog, and I was reading that, and obviously was really inspired by Phil Knight and his building of Nike. And I remember there was one part where he said something had happened to one of the soles on their shoes, and they dedicated so much time and energy to finding this solution that they then shared with their competitors. And I think that would be so great if either we could be that person, or if one of the other bigger, more established brands is, you know, able to find that solution and then share the packaging and help us to create a more sustainable answer to energy gel packaging, because it seems like at the moment there's only one answer, and that's it. And it's really frustrating as well, because even if you want to do something else, it's so hard to do, because like I said, in the EU we have so many rules and regulations around packaging. It's definitely not as easy as just saying, oh well, why didn't you just do sustainable packaging? And the time people say, oh, that's why I can't find a gel with biodegradable packaging or sustainable packaging, because there's so many, like I said, so many regulations, so many tests need to be done, and then it obviously has to be printed at a laminate printers, go through their machinery, then go through packaging. So yeah, it is something I definitely want to do for the future, is move towards a more sustainable way of life, because I think energy gels in particular get a bad rap for trail littering and, just being the tips of them. I don't know if you know trash-free trails. They're like collective. They always call them the fit man's cigarette butt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So true. But I think it's partly about educating as well, and making people aware, like, please take it home with you in the interim until we can have that sustainable option. But something else that before COVID hit, I was in talks with a lot of trail events organizers about having like a VALA cleanup, having VALA bins, and making sure that everything is left the way that it is found on that trail day, because there's nothing that annoys me more than when you go to an event and you just see rubbish everywhere. And there are bins, but maybe there's not enough. I don't know what it is, but that's something that I'm really keen to do as well.
I think there has to be an element of personal responsibility as well, doesn't there? I mean, I know, just because you have an energy gel wrapper doesn't mean that you have to throw it on the floor. You can, most of us, if you're cycling or running, you've got a pocket, you can put it in a pocket and take it to a bin. I remember I was on one race. It was a mountain bike marathon, and there was a guy who was eating gels and then throwing them down to the side. And I mean, I pulled up alongside him and said, like, you're not in the Tour de France, mate. I don't want to break it to you, but you're not going to be on TV tonight. You're not in so much of a rush. You can't just put that in your pocket, really. So I think there's an element of personal responsibility there in terms of littering. I think that's, everybody has a responsibility to look after the environment that we're in, don't they? I think with the packaging, and certainly hearing you talk about it, I think it's one of those things that looks a lot easier from the outside. If you're not an energy gel manufacturer, it probably seems a lot easier to make biodegradable packaging than it is if you actually know what's going on. But I'm really interested in the way that the way that you solve those problems and move forward. I know we spoke about getting a bottle, like a litre bottle or something like that, and a flask, and so people can dispense themselves. And that's something I've done, particularly when I lived in America, lived in California for a while, and that's what I used to do, when I was out there, and that worked really well. And it's a bit more cost effective, as a consumer as well, because you're paying for less material, aren't you? So it will be great to see, that on the market. I've actually been keeping my eye out for something like that on the market since I've been back in the UK. So I'm sure there will be, demand for that. I know people are getting more and more conscious about packaging, and in particular plastic packaging, so.
Yeah, I think hopefully in the next maybe 5 to 10 years, there will be a big shift towards finding that technology and putting efforts and resources into really making that a reality.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think there is. I think there's hopefully a perfect storm now of popular demand and interest, manufacturers of packaging and plastics, looking at alternatives and looking at different ways to do things. And of course now there's businesses like you which are really concerned about it, and you're raising the issue with your suppliers, you're talking to suppliers, you're looking into these things. So with all of that going on, hopefully this, it will, I think it will, it has to happen, doesn't it? As we go forward. So I think watch this space really on that. And I'm really pleased that it's something that you're thinking about and moving towards, and that's good to hear. Good to get that message.
Amazing. Yeah, it's definitely on the agenda. But like you said, I think it's like trying to think at the beginning of your business, how are we going to do this, and then working backwards, realistic, achievable steps. So I think definitely in the future, that is something I really would love to do, and maybe even offer the reusable one alongside the gels for a while, then see how, you know, they compare, how the demand is met really for that.
Yeah, I think there's probably always going to be the need for a packaged gel. Be great if we get some, you know, biodegradable packaging and that kind of thing. But I think there always will be, you know, an element for that. I know when, you know, sometimes if you know you're out on an unexpected run, or you need to package something that needs to stay in your rucksack for a week before you're going to use it, you know, on a long expedition type trip, you know, it is, I think there'll always be a market for having, you know, some gels which are pre-packaged, you know, but multiple solutions for multiple people, I think, is the key, isn't it? I mean, I would say certainly, you know, that Valor is already several steps ahead of you know, most other manufacturers in terms of the environmental focus on the ingredients, getting local ingredients where possible, all natural products, you know, so already there's a lot, you know, it's already doing a lot more than your typical sort of, you know, sports gel.
Yeah, definitely. I think people lump us in as the same category as being an energy gel along with the big brands, but I think sometimes that's a blessing and sometimes it's a bit of a curse, because people are comparing you directly to what they're used to or what they know. So that comes into, yeah, flavor, expectations of flavor, price, and that's something that I'm encountering it as the founder of this brand, changing perceptions and educating people about the benefits of eating a more natural gel and why you should consider it over, you know, maybe what they've been used to in the past.
Yeah, and I noticed that, again, we spoke last week and also on your Facebook page, and you sort of, it's not about everybody going out and smashing a massive Ironman or running a marathon or racing, you know, endurance races. You know, this is the way that your product fits. I mean, yes, it can do all those things, but actually, for someone who's just out for a run in the local woods, you know, they can have something which is actual food. You know, it isn't you know, a sports gel, but it has the function of being good sports nutrition. But they're also just feeding themselves something good. You're just taking in nutrition, you know, positive nutrition into your body, so it can be incorporated into any level, really.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, again, ties into our brand, that I don't want sport to feel elitist or intimidating. And I had so many friends say to me, I'd love to try one of your gels, but I'm not a real runner. I only do a 5K. I just get so annoyed when people say that, because I think if you're outside, it's like what Nike says, if you have a body, you're an athlete, isn't that the saying? Yeah, and just, I don't want people to think like it is this very elitist thing. And that's what I found with a lot of sports brands. It was like, it's like sport, and it's like men in their 30s on a bike in Lycra. And not everyone's like that. People have different reasons for exercising, number one. And that's what I liked about our gels. Yeah, they can be used for hiking, they can be used for swimming, diving, you know, running. There's lots of uses, and it's about embracing what you enjoy. It's not, oh, I feel like in order to be sporty, I have to sign up for a half marathon or an Ironman, because I'm not that person. I run for enjoyment. I run mainly for my mental health and because it grounds my day. And so I wanted to share that message that, yeah, like, it's not always about what your Strava says or about running this crazy PB. It's just, think about what you enjoy and what your purpose is for running or exercising in general, and remember that. Don't try to just think of these, you know, elusive goals and then focus your life around that, because it's often the smaller runs, or, you know, the times when you're not listening to a time in your year that you are the most present and that you really enjoy the most.
Definitely. And I think it can be off-putting to a lot of people, as you say. You know, people say, oh, I'm not a runner, you know, but I only run 5K. Well, you're running 5K. You're running, you know, that's the same thing. And less than 1% of 1% of 1% of people on the planet are doing things like Ironman, you know, and those sort of ultra endurance, you know, ultra marathons and that kind of thing, but it is strongly disproportionately represented in marketing for sports nutrition products, even health products. You know, there's always somebody doing something extreme, you know, in the advertising, and actually the vast majority of people aren't doing that at all. And arguably the biggest gains that we've got for holistic health, physical and mental health, are in the smaller scale stuff. It isn't in doing a huge race or a huge event or a big expedition. It's in the daily going for a walk around the woods, you know, near your house, or if you don't have any woods, just going for a gentle run down the street and clearing your mind and being at peace and those sorts of things. And that's actually the most important aspect of physical exercise and wellness, I think, really, not the extreme end. Not that doesn't have its place, and you know, I do endurance sport myself and really enjoy it, but it's not the most important thing. But it seems that way, you know, if you look at the marketing, and I think, yeah, people are often put off by it.
Yeah, I was told, I sent some samples to someone who I really admired, and they said to me, I don't really think that strapline, keep it real, is any good. And I was like, why? And they're like, well, you know, if you look at all these other sports brands and they say this and they're more inspirational, and I was like, that's not my brand ethos though. My brand ethos is that we're out here, we are keeping it real, we're doing it because we love it, and it's just about being honest and having integrity. I don't want to create a business that doesn't reflect my personal values, because then everything that I put out, I'm just questioning and doubting, you know, is this right for this imaginary persona I've created? Whereas it's so much easier to be honest and authentic. And then I've definitely noticed that people really enjoy that. They enjoy the refreshing honesty. And I think a lot of our customers, followers, they very much have that mindset as well, that they're so happy to talk about their mental health when they went for the run, or how much better they feel after it, or how some days you just have to, you know, take a day off. And it's not always about just having this rosy Instagram filter, you know, on everything. It's about living a life, like we said, that of integrity, and that's true to your values. And so that's essentially the basis for VALA. That's why we always say keep it real. It's just like, keep it real, you know. So yeah, I thought that was funny that someone said you need to be more sporty. Not the point.
Good for you for sticking. Good for you for sticking with that. Interestingly, it's similar really with my strapline, building conscious organisations. You know, I've had feedback that it sounds a bit hippie, or it sounds a bit too ethical. I mean, what too ethical is, I'm not sure, because I don't know how you can be too ethical, really. You know, but the actual meaning of it is around a more technical sort of aspect of consciousness, which is about organisations being responsive, awake, having integrity, being integrated and coherent, which builds longevity and sustainability and that kind of thing. And I've stuck to it because it's core really to, you know, and maybe it doesn't appeal to some people, and that's fine, but it's core to to what we're sort of, the kinds of values, procedures, systems that we advocate are beneficial for organisations. And I think what your whole raison d'etre really is about integrity and meaning. And I think more and more people are realising that meaning is absolutely key. We're almost going through a process. I think over the last 10, 15 years, as social media has gone from being not a thing at all to being a massive thing. The superficial, facile nature of a lot of things, I think it is being exposed for what it is to a degree. And people are hungry, really, kind of meaning dehydrated, you know, that need something a bit more real to actually connect to, because are realizing more and more that actually, yeah, this representation of people or organizations, companies, businesses on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, it's not really real. It's just a particular aspect. So I think when people can connect with, and it's something we talk about in Systemic Creative in our training courses, about organizations actually are living systems. They're not just things, they are living systems. And when one living system connects with another living system, there's a process of structural coupling, which is about both entities, both systems aligning themselves with each other. And when both are operating with integrity, that alignment can be much stronger, and the value that you get from the relationship and the interaction is much more stronger and meaningful for people. And I think that, you know, this is what VALA is about, as you're saying. And I think, you know, that stands the business in good stead, I think, for being sustainable. And I think it's more likely to make a meaningful contribution to people's lives. And as I said, it's music to my ears, really, to see a startup business with those ethics as absolutely core to the business, you know. And I really hope that we get more and more following the trajectory that you're doing, really.
Oh, yeah, definitely, same. And like we said before, I think it's about really realizing that human connection and the power of being honest and being human, and especially when creating a brand. Now, I think more than ever, people really want to see who's creating that brand. You know, people say we live in an information age, and I think that sort of conditioned us to be more curious as well, and to find out, like, hang on, where's this brand from? What's their brand ethos? What do they stand for? And like, where are their things made? And I think, yeah, that's definitely a movement I've seen in brands that I've met and companies that I've met, that we're all sort of starting to realize the human connection combined with finding your purpose, you know, and then baking that into your brand too.
Absolutely. Yeah. To use a controversial example, but there's a line in the movie, the Social Network, about Facebook and how Mark Zuckerberg started Facebook, and he says something along the lines of, he's got a finance director who's sort of badgering him and saying, look, we've got X number of people subscribed to the platform. We need to monetize it. We need to get stuff in to make this work. We're in debt. And he says, well, you know, it's got to be cool. Facebook has to be cool before we can monetize it, you know. And I think that is, and notwithstanding the controversial, let's say, trajectory that Facebook has followed since then, and the number of problems, you know, which have come as a result of its dealing with meaning. But that principle, I think, is becoming more embedded, and it's becoming realised that actually that's the key to the modern organisation, really, and moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really exciting to see how it'll grow and develop over the next maybe 10, 15 years as well.
I'm very excited. You know, I've just realised we've kind of got maybe an hour into this conversation, we've not actually mentioned how VALA energy gels taste. You know, which is a really important thing. They taste fantastic. I should say this, that I tried them completely without knowing Gemma or anything like that, and they're great. Some of the best gels I've had, and they're really different. It tastes like food, which is very encouraging to me. So they'll definitely form part of my you know, nutrition strategy going forward. Definitely. So for anyone who's listening to this thinking, well, yeah, but what do they taste like? They taste fantastic. They taste really good.
Yeah, sweet with a citrus aftertaste is how I tend to describe them to people. They're a bit thicker than what you'd probably be used to if you used to take in normal gels.
Yeah, a little bit more texture, but yeah, not off-putting. Not off-putting. You know, I mean, I really enjoy that. I like something to taste like food. That kind of ultra kind of silky. I've never liked that in gels. I've used gels because I've kind of had to, you know, in terms of for sports performance and that kind of thing. But I've never really liked that ultra refined silky sort of flavour. So for me, the VALA gel has a much more natural taste and texture, which yeah, I prefer, definitely.
That was nice feedback.
Cool. Well, yeah, and genuine too. So that seems like a good place to end it, really. Is there anything else that you feel people watching should know about VALA? Where can they buy the product? How can they connect? That kind of thing.
Yeah, so you can visit us online at valaenergy.com, and on our socials it's at VALA Energy, I tend to use Instagram mostly, the most active on there. So yeah, if you want to get in touch, say hi, send me a message on there or follow us. Yeah, that's it really.
On Facebook, you got a Facebook page. Yeah, stuff on there.
Twitter, somewhat neglected.
Twitter is neglected. Yeah, I chose to try to minimise with Systemic Creative. I knew I couldn't possibly keep track of loads, so I just sort of do Facebook really. But it can get a little bit difficult, can't it? So we'll put all that in the notes as well. So there'll be links to all that sort of stuff down below. So check those out. Thank you, Gemma, for your time. It's been really interesting. I'm sure we could talk for another hour quite easily about all this stuff. There's loads more I could ask you about, but I really appreciate your time and thank you for talking to us.
Oh, thank you so much. It's always so interesting to learn about what you do as well and how aligned both of our visions are, I suppose.
They are very aligned, aren't they? Yeah, which is, yeah, really nice. So do check out VALA Energy online, have a look at their socials, definitely buy some gels. I strongly recommend you do that. That's the first thing you should do, actually. Thank you for watching. Please give us a like if you've enjoyed the conversation, and subscribe and ring the little bell, and we're hopefully going to bring more sort of stuff like this to you as well. So thanks very much.
Thank you. See you.